This case is going to be super interesting and it's going to be very detailed if the opening statements that happened are anything to go by. Adrian Gonzales' trial kicked off yesterday with opening statements and some testimony from witnesses, and here's what happened. It's a great day for a great day. My name is Cindy Rushing. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the state of Michigan. Now let's talk about it. One thing the prosecutor really focused on saying was Adrian Gonzales remains. Basically, they're saying that he didn't do anything. He just stayed in one spot, didn't move, didn't do anything. They said when they pulled up, he saw this teacher, he spoke with her, and he stood with her and got some information from her, was saying things over the radios, and then he heard gunshots. And while the prosecutor's trying to tell this story and what they want the jury to believe, they make it look like it's some drawn out thing, and then he comes up and says this was a minute difference between all of these things, and that goes to show like it's not as long and drawn out as he's trying to make it seem. They said that he did not enter the building until his supervisor yelled shots fired, get in the building. He was one of the first ones to go in there. He went in there 8 minutes after arrival. He said that Officer Gonzales has been with the Uvalde Police Department for 10 years and that he did have active pew-pew training. The prosecutor was pretty emotional during his opening statement, and at times seemed like he was having a little bit of difficulty trying to get through it, but he ended it with saying that when a child is endangered and calls 911, then we have the right to expect a response. Now, this opening statement was something that was much different than what we usually see from prosecutors because there was no elements spoken about. There was no burden of proof. It was just this story about how this kind of unfolded and the emotion behind it, because that's one thing that they're really going to be trying to like weigh in on and really try and emphasize on this jury is emotion. They're going to try and pull on those heartstrings. And this is something that's usually different. Usually it's the defense that is more prone to this type of approach than the prosecutors. So that was interesting to see. And the defense gave their opening statement. And I'm just going to let you know off rip, it was a little weird because they had both defense attorneys kind of give parts of the opening statement. But they did come out and they provided an aerial photo of the school and the location of everything. And I think that that was very effective with this jury because they were able to show how far away certain items were, where their client was, things like that. I think it was very effective. The defense pointed out that the prosecutors like really just kind of didn't give much detail and, were very open-ended on things. And he said that they were going to be very precise. They're going to give him the second by second, the minute by minute details about how this incident unfolded. The defense then got into the details about how what both sides are basically redeeming the person as a monster, and how he actually pew-pewed his grandma in the face first, got in her car, drove her car, wrecked it, and then, jumped the fence, and all of these things are happening. There was way more detail given by the defense. They said on that day, Officer Gonzales was actually at a park. He usually is with the high school side, his end of year things, and when he heard the call, something that is not even his call to answer, he went to help. They also explained how this area has a lot of undocumented immigrants, and so they see a lot of these like bail type things happen where someone gets like in an accident and they just bail out and they run away. So at first they thought that this may be that type of situation, and the thing is, the school didn't even go on lockdown when this accident happened right by it. One thing that I think is going to be very hard for the prosecutors is that while Officer Gonzales is talking to Miss Flores, is the teacher he talked to outside, was getting information from, 3 other officers approach, and they approach from a different location, and they actually saw the monster. They saw his pew-pew, and they called out over the thing because they had a big pew-pew themselves, and they called out of the radio and asked permission to pew-pew, to give action. Before they got a response from that, the monster entered the building, so they weren't able to take that shot. And what they say is this entire time is that Mr. Gonzales never saw any of this. He didn't see him entering the building. He didn't see him in the parking lot. He actually never saw the monster. Again, some of the officers thought that they were being pew-pewed at because of the sound that it was making and how it was ricocheting. Then they said that, Gonzales was one of the first 3 officers that went in. He was in the direct line of fire, and, he didn't run away from that. He didn't, shy away. So he did act. And that's something that they kept saying is that he acted. He did as he was trained to do. Co-counsel then got up and he started, going into more details about the calls and the times, and he had another a visual aid to help with seeing these things and seeing how everything was laid out. The defense is going to do a very good job, I think, in showing the jury like how this played out, because those seconds matter and the visuals matter, I think, really big in this case. Because one thing that the defense both said when they were telling the jury what they needed, they're saying, look, they're going to play on your emotions. You're not going to be the same person when you come out of this trial because of the things that you have to see, but emotion cannot be used to sway your verdict. You have to go by the law and the evidence that's given. One thing that was interesting is that while the co-counsel was giving his opening statement, the prosecutor actually objected. He was talking about these reports done by the FBI, all these outside agencies, and what those reports found and what their findings were. And she said that these aren't relevant. This is XYZ. The judge overruled her objection because these are things that can come out in cross-examination. Not only that, But it's not normal for prosecutors or defense attorneys to object during opening because opening statements are not evidence. These are not things that the jury can actually take into consideration when making their verdict. They can only do the evidence. The opening statements are kind of to direct them, tell them what they're going to see. If they don't see those things, they can't use this in their deliberation. But opening statements are like laid out to kind of tell a jury what they're looking for, what the elements are, and all of that. Another interesting thing that the defense brought out is the teacher, Miss Flores. They say like they're not going to beat her up, they're just going to talk with her, but basically everything that she said, she was wrong about. The police department never even, reached out to her to get a statement. She went to the police department 7 days later and said, I have something I want to say. She described Officer Gonzales as Officer Page. She was wrong about, being pew-pewed at. She was wrong about a lot of things, and these things are going to come out during her testimony, so that's going to be very interesting to see. And that was the opening statements by both sides. So thank you for being here. Thank you for following along. Make sure to come back so you can see the recap of day 1. And here's the question of the day. Do you think that the prosecution maybe hurt themselves a little bit by being so short and not really going into much detail? Or do you think that that's going to work better on them and they're going to have success and just weighing in on the emotion side of this only? Let me know in the comments.